InObscuria.
Welcome back, my friends, to the InObscuria podcast, the podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should-have-beens. I'm Kevin Williams. That's Robert Harrison, and we are here again for a second week in 2024.
So far, so good.
2 episodes, almost.
Yeah, nothing crazy. Just, the world's on fire, but, over here in our little world, nothing crazy.
Nothing
just
crazy
sitting
yet.
here with my hand, with a hiney in my hand.
A little grasping a hiney.
Grab a hiney right before the show.
Right-handed hiney.
That's right. It's skinny hiney.
Heineken Silver. I don't really know what the silver is, but it's
the color of the can. It's
good point.
Like I said, they haven't changed anything in 40 years, so they changed the color of the can. I go, oh, it's Heineken Silver.
Well, instead of calling it light, they have a light. This is 5 calories more than the light. 5 calories more, and
Light-ish?
so they have to give it a different name.
Oh, that's it.
Pretty dumb.
You're in marketing.
It's stupid.
You know about this stuff.
It's stupid. Silver means nothing.
Whatever it is to get you to buy more.
It says silver, and then it's got a blue line on it. Why didn't they call it blue?
Well, because blue line people think it's for cops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, enough of that shit. What's going on with you this week?
Well, you see the fire truck sitting in the driveway.
Yes.
That means it rolls.
It's running.
It runs, and it drove under its own power for the first time in 6 months.
All right.
Put it back together, drove it up and down the street, got home.
That's a big Lego you were playing with.
And I did all that, and it doesn't have brakes.
What the hell did you just say?
Oh. And you knew that when you went out.
Yeah, I figured it out as I was backing out of the garage. It was like,
Hold on!
Got to turn. Got to turn.
Foot goes all the way to the floor. You're like, well, I got an emergency brake. It's, you grab the big emergency brake stick and pull it.
How'd that work?
It worked great. Too good. It
okay.
Skid it to a stop. And then I'm like, I can do this. I can shift gears and use the emergency brake with the same hand because it's way over to the right. So your right hand shifts gears. You got a double clutch and work the emergency brake with the same hand. And I was like, I'm up for a challenge today. So I drove it up the street.
Well, you just use your knees for the steering wheel, and then you can use 2 hands.
Something like that. But I made it back home. And so called AAA this morning. Come get it, which is my pit crew. Like, you know what? Come get it. I'm taking it to the shop. I'm done. Like, they're going to fix the brakes and everything. So AAA's, of course, which they will never be a sponsor of this show, so I don't care about that anymore. I've got a 25-year love-hate relationship with AAA. Call them. They're like, yes, we will be there at 1:15.
Be right there.
Send me text every 30 minutes. Hey, we're going to be there 1:15, 1:15, 1:20, 1:30, 1:40, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock,
The
4
texts were
o'clock.
changing too?
No. It still said
1:15.
We'll be there at 1:15. And I kept calling. They're like, yeah, we can't get a hold of the tow truck driver. I'm like, I'm in Atlanta. There's got to be more than one freaking tow truck. And they're just like, oh, we're busy today. Sorry.
Oh, so it never happened. That's why it's still here.
You see the truck still in the driveway.
I do.
Yeah, so they're like, well, we'll be there in the morning.
At 1:15 in the morning.
Yeah, I have no doubt in the world I'm going to be woken up to beep, beep.
Is this the one you want me to take? And he's got your other truck on there.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to hook up the F-250 out there instead of the vintage 47 Ford. And they don't even have that in their computer database.
You couldn't pick that.
No, it's a 2047 Ford truck. So every time I call, they're like, well, this isn't right. Let's adjust this. I'm like, you can't put 1947 in your system. Well, no, hang on a second. Let me fix this. And then, we can't. We're just going to, I'm like, I know every freaking time I call, somebody's got to try to fix that.
It's a future car.
It's a future car. Come tow my future truck. So that's my day today.
Binary solo.
0000001 0000001
Come on, Sacro Lake, my battery.
Wow.
Loads of fun. Typical Robert stuff.
You were up there when I came in. You were up there. You had a little mixer out. You were
frantically
doing looks like a little bit of chemistry.
Because he texted me and I just put dinner on the stove and I was like, oh, I can do it.
Is there
Come on.
any reason for me to hit a button?
Hit that button, Kevin.
Oh, I get to hit the button.
Hit the
I'm
button.
so happy.
Yeah. Everybody sing along at home. You know by now. Come on. You got the words. Bob your head.
That's right, Musketeers.
Tell me about it.
Time to get your grub on.
Grubby, grubby, grubby.
That can get it to your funky style.
What no eating? Right now, Roberts. What no eating?
So it's nothing weird. I made wild rice and mushroom soup. And when I say wild rice, I mean I went out in the woods behind the firehouse and shot that rice myself. Took it to the back porch, hung it out to
How did
dry,
you catch it?
Skinned it,
Wow.
chopped it up, put it in the pan. So it's actual wild rice.
Wow, I didn't even know that's how rice was.
Oh yeah, most people don't know that. If they knew
Farmed.
how you get wild rice, most people wouldn't eat it. They would be disgusted. But yeah, it's kind of gruesome and bloody. But I got it in the pan, and this podcast will have a halftime. So halfway through the podcast, remember that we need to stop, go do a tasting, and then we'll continue with the podcast.
And a tasting means a full bowl for you, yes?
Whatever.
That's
you
a tasting.
Taste. A
Yes.
good taste, yes.
Okay.
Because I'm dying. I need some
Sustenance.
I need some soup, man. It's good
All right.
stuff. So
we
yeah,
won't
that was it.
take too long. I don't have a lot to get into this week, but we do need to tell the people, if you're gonna catch wild rice, if you're out there and you're hunting wild rice, make sure you bring along the following podcast: Pot of Thunder, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, Slamfest Podcast, Decibel Geek, A to Z Radio, Metal Up Your Podcast, The Hustle, Disciples of the Watch, Podcast Rock City, Sean Geek and Fast Fret Podcast, State of Amorica, Rock Strikes 10, Potter Than Hell, Shout It Out Loudcast, The Ron Keel Podcast, The Kiss Room, Ages of Rock, Retrozest Podcast, and don't forget about Monty.
Hey, it's Monty.
Monty's Rockcast. Come visit us, InObscuria.com. Like us, share us, Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Did you see the message that Sean Geek Podcast left us?
Which one?
Complimenting you on your
On the solo episode?
And it was pretty backhanded, fun in a funny way. He's like, yeah, I love InObscuria, they're great, but these solo podcasts, they're my favorite, because you can tell Kevin, he's just got that love of music. And Kevin's great. Yeah, these are my favorite. I'm like, hey, taking my job away from me, man.
Well, Paul Cole Wheat left us some messages and said how much he enjoyed the episode, and then at the end of his sentence he said Rob.
I saw that too. And I'm like, thanks, man. He wanted to make
was
sure
a
I was
subtle
included.
way.
Yeah, he's like, let me say something good
Yeah,
about
this
Rob.
podcast is great, but we need more Rob.
Yeah, so let them fight it out. We'll see who wins on that.
Okay, whatever. I don't care.
Put them on that other podcast that does the battle thing.
Right.
The really cool podcast.
Cobras and Fire?
Yeah, they got a lot of listeners.
Oh.
Yeah, the really cool one.
Okay, that one.
Yeah.
I thought that was us.
Besides us.
Oh,
In
okay.
addition to.
All right.
They got like 8 more listeners than we do, so they're cool.
That's true. Well, let's just get right into this because I wore the right socks for the night, as you'll see. Look at that.
They have a guitar on them.
They have several guitars on them. At the end of last week's episode, when we were trucking, we
Like
played
the
a
Doodah
song.
Band.
I like the Doodah Band. We played a song by Derek Trucks, and we started, or I should say, you started going off on a tangent about the
Which
almighty.
I never do.
Never.
I
It was
never
the first,
go off tangent. Let me tell
first
about the
for you.
time that I went off on a tangent.
Do it. Yeah, let's go into it. No, you went off a little bit on the greatness of one Dwayne Allman.
Yes.
And your love of his playing and what it means to you and how it influenced you as a player, as a fan of music. And so no need to pull the Ouija board out. In fact, we can't because the
can't.
dog has completely demolished it beneath
Yeah.
our feet.
Ronnie James D.O.G.
He like came in here, fluffed it up, folded it up, and messed it all up, and then walks out of the room. Like, all right, my job's done.
We have like a 5-foot Ouija board carpet that sits below us. And
Yes.
yeah, he just completely mangled it.
But then he leaves. He's like, all right, see ya.
Well, he knows like the spirits are going to come get us because they're going to be pissed off.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to screw this up for you and walk out.
But no worries because we don't need to use it this week. We don't need to contact any spirits about the theme of the show. We're just going to keep the discussion going about guitars. So this is episode 212, Shredding the Tomb, Guitars That Rocked Our World.
Yes.
So these are guitars that mean something to us, not necessarily
Guitarists.
guitars. That's better said, isn't
Yeah.
it? Guitarist.
Because I've got guitars that rock my world.
Well, this is true.
They're upstairs.
Yeah. Guitarist. Okay. We'll go with that. We've done 3 of these episodes before the Shredding the Tomb. We've always focused on the amazing players of their instruments. We did a kind of classic rock gunslingers episode 65. We did one on bass players episode 94, and we did a complete axe shredder episode last year. Maybe it was over a year ago. Episode 114.
That was like diddly noodly diddly,
A lot of
wall to
noodly
wall,
diddly, yes.
wall to wall.
So the reason, of course, we're doing this is the main driving force of rock and roll, rock and punk and metal has always been the guitar and the guitar heroes that play those guitars. We've given you a lot of background on who those guitarists are, and we don't need to do that again. I think you know. This time around, we're going to play guitarist or guitar passages or leads in songs that caught our ears at some point in our lives that made us stop and listen. Mm-hmm. So these are guitar leads or songs that mean something to us. It's not always about the training or the finesse or the dexterity or speed that the player has or even the style of music or the song that's being played. It's if you're into guitar and the sound of the strings being plucked, sometimes it doesn't matter where it's coming from. It catches your ear a certain way, and you're like, oh, I like that. It could be jazz. It could be anything, really. Mm-hmm. I hear it all the time where there's just certain sounds that, for whatever reason, they get to you individually, to your heart and your soul, and that's what we're going to play today.
And keep in mind the theme of this podcast, the overall theme, obscure rock, punk, and metal. And so we'll talk about some of the obvious guitar gods out there, but we may not play the ones you're thinking of. And the ones that I thought of initially when you mentioned the theme of this particular podcast, of course, every single one I thought of, I immediately thought, well, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. We need to dig deeper.
Dig a little deeper. Well, even the
third floor down in the vault.
Right. And even some of the ones that you may have, or you may know of, or you've heard several songs by them, we're going to try to stay true to the program, and we're going to pick songs or side projects that maybe they've done that you're not as familiar with.
A little bit off
so
the
a
path.
little bit of an offshoot for if it's a mainstream.
Because otherwise I would
girl.
give you the list starting with, the guitar solo in Comfortably Numb, the intro to Crazy Train,
right.
all this.
Right. Exactly.
Tom Sawyer, whatever.
Exactly.
Things, guitar riffs and this and that. So,
and we've gone down those lists in those previous shows. So you can go back if you want to hear that. We're going to, like Robert said, we're going to focus more on the obscure, the noodly diddly that just, or maybe it's not even. Maybe it's like a single note lead. If it just catches you right, it catches you right and you love it.
Yeah.
I can't explain it always. It's not about the dexterity. It's not about the, even a player who's just picked up a guitar, if they're making a noise or a sound that you've never heard before, just in such a unique way, it still strikes you as something special.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to start off with one of my picks, and this is a song that we've actually played on the show before, sort of. I'm going to play a newer version of a song that we played before. This is a version that was recorded in 2009 versus the one we played on episode 17, which was recorded in 1985. And the song I'm talking about is called Blue Flames, and it's by a band called Anvil Chorus, pretty obscure band. We played it in episode 17. That was one of our 80s episodes. And the reason I played it then was I mentioned that the song kind of paved the way past punk when I heard it in 1985 to bring me into the world of metal and even progressive music. And I heard this band and this song prior to my discovering Metallica and Metal Church that same year. Mm-hmm. Which was actually 86, I believe, when I heard them. And this song also introduced me to guitarmonies. I had never heard that before. And we love guitarmonies.
Yes, we do.
And it kind of molded my ears to, at least it perked them up to something like, I want to hear more like that.
Do you think anybody doesn't know what guitar harmonies is?
There might be some people who don't know what guitar harmonies are. So guitar harmonies, it's basically when two lead guitarists are harmonizing, or more,
Leonard Skinner,
are playing harmonies. So different notes in a lead pattern on the scale of some sort of scale.
And it's not, when I said Leonard Skinner, typically they would have three guitars soloing at the same time. Just chaos that worked somehow. Guitar harmonies are when they're actually playing
it's
along.
It's a passage,
in unison, but in harmony.
similar to what a symphony would do if
Right.
you had the violas and the violins. And,
Yeah, first chair,
going at the
second
same
chair,
time.
third chair.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about when we say guitar harmonies. We say guitar harmonies because it sounds cooler.
It's cool, and we are cooler.
Exactly. So Anvil Chorus, I heard this on a tape that I had to send away for in the mail. This is how it worked in 1985, people.
Columbia.
No.
Oh, was it Columbia?
No, this was Thrasher
12
magazine.
for a penny?
Remember, I was a little skate punk,
Oh, yeah.
and that's when I got into music because a lot of the skateboarders were wearing punk rock T-shirts and were listening to punk rock when they were skating. And so I thought that was really cool. And me and my friend Brandon Still, we were starting to get into this punk music, and we would read Thrasher magazine. There were two skateboard magazines. One was Thrasher, which had kind of like newspaper print.
Right, I remember
And
that.
the other one was Transworld, which had the glossy,
More
nice
professional
print. More
looking.
professional. But everybody liked Thrasher more because they also featured punk and bands and metal, and like they didn't just do skateboard. But
It was
anyway,
it was Lifestyle magazine.
it was exactly a lifestyle magazine before that was a thing. And they had this ad in 1985 for a series of skate rock tapes where they would make these compilations. And I didn't know anything about any of the bands in the compilations. I just knew that Thrasher magazine had these tapes, and I randomly picked Volume 2 and Volume 3 to purchase first.
Sounds good. Go for the middle.
Hey, sounds cool. Volume 2 happened to have TSOL on it, so it not only introduced me to TSOL, but it also introduced me to this band, Anvil Chorus. And me not knowing anything, I assumed that every band on this tape was a well-known punk band, because that's what I thought it was. And most of them were. They were kind of like hardcore punk bands. But Anvil Chorus is on that. Anvil Chorus is actually a metal/progressive band from San Francisco. I have no idea how they found their way on this skate rock tape because they didn't even have an album out. This was a demo, and somehow it found its way onto this compilation. The only compilation they've ever been on. Very bizarre. This band was around in the San Francisco scene prior to the thrash bands, but influenced a lot of the bands like Metallica, like Exodus. And in fact, they played with those bands. They even opened for Metallica and Exodus at one point when those bands got bigger than them, and they played with Yngwie Malmsteen. So that's the kind of crowd they were hanging out with.
Well, you know, the guy that wrote that article, his cousin, twice removed,
Was in the band.
That's
That's probably it.
something like that.
That's
or
probably
was
it.
a roadie for them, or had some connection.
Yeah, here in hindsight, I'm like, this doesn't fit on this tape at all.
But
Like,
that's usually when that happens, you have to dig deeper and go, oh, okay, I can see that your
Yeah.
neighbors. You live next door to that dude, and
Yeah.
that's how it happens.
And this band, so I mentioned that later on in that year, I got into Metallica and Metal Church. Those were kind of the first metal bands that I was listening to outside of punk. And this band actually were friends with Metal Church because Metal Church was from the Pacific Northwest. And I guess they stole their name from Kurt Vanderhoof from Metal Church. And so at one point, they created a song called Bow to the Church of Metal to appease him. I've never heard that song, but I want to. But for the longest time, all I knew about Anvil Chorus was I loved this song, Blue Flames, and this was the only time I ever heard of them. Never found an album, never found anything, and they never released one. They had a demo.
And that was it.
And at some point, they broke up. Well, all these years later, in 2008, they get back together because a lot of these guys went on to be in thrash bands, Bay Area thrash bands. I didn't know that. But years later, in 2008, they get back together and they finally re-record the album that they always wanted to make. And so they put out in 2009 all of the stuff that was on the demos into a proper album, and they released it as The Killing Sun, and Blue Flames is on it. So I'm going to play this song. Again, we've played it before, but this is a different version. And it's the same two guitarists, but it's a little more professional sounding, and obviously they are much more seasoned guitarists now
Yeah, 'cause
at this point.
30-something, 35 years later.
Exactly.
I don't do math at night.
Oh, that sounds horrible. Math.
God, no, screw that.
But here is Anvil Chorus.
So originally that was 1985, the demo of
The
that
demo,
song.
yeah.
That just makes the LA hair band scene look silly.
Oh yeah, this was
I mean,
like
that
precursor to thrash.
Yeah,
This was like Metal
thrash
Church. It was like
infancy at that point.
prior to that speed.
Yeah, add in the speed, it would have been just pure thrash. That was metal. And it was good, solid metal. That it's one of those things, a few more things clicked in the right way. And a record company said, yeah, we're going to put you in the studio and let you do a real demo of that. That's as good as 90% of the stuff that we've heard on this podcast.
And just imagine me, like, all I knew was the pop music that I'd heard on the radio at this point, which there's some great 80s and 70s stuff that I was, familiar with, but I had never heard anything like this because I hadn't started listening to classic rock. I knew nothing about any of the guitar classic bands.
See, I was firmly entrenched in the top 40.
That's all I knew.
And,
That's all I knew
a
was
little bit of
top 40.
classic rock at that point. Not classic rock would come a few years later. While thrash was big, I was back in 25 years earlier.
In my house, my dad listened to country and disco
And
the
Western.
top 40.
Country
and
and
Western. And like 60s and 50s
Yeah.
rock. That's really what he was into. So I'd never heard anything like this. And I'm only exposed to punk at this point, and I hear those guitars and that that kind of chromatic thing down, and I'm like, what is this?
I wish 15-year-old me could have heard that just to see what my reaction would have been, because once again, I would see the hair bands on MTV because they didn't play them on the radio necessarily, except the power ballads, but the bands themselves, and I would just look and go, these guys are goofballs, and it never appealed to me at that time. But this was very melodic and well put together, that without seeing the visual of the Aquanet and the everything else, maybe this would have kind of opened my eyes a little bit earlier than it did. It took another 5 years for me to really start getting into the heavier stuff.
Yeah, and for me, again, I had no exposure to MTV because we didn't have it in my town, and I didn't even know.
Oh, we were
about the
upscale
look.
by 1985. Oh, we were highfalutin.
Yeah,
we had that.
Not me.
And CNN.
So Thane Rasmussen and Doug Piercy were the two guitarists. They were excellent. They went on to be in, like I said, a bunch of different Bay Area bands. At one point, they were both in the thrash band Heathen, which is a great thrash band, but I'm glad they came back and did a proper recording of it. I will say I still prefer the original raw.
Well, because
that's what I heard.
What you associate it with. It's not just the music.
It's a little bit
We've talked about
faster.
that.
It's a little bit faster, and it doesn't have the. There's a little bit of a lull in this one that has like a little quiet moment. That's not in the original. They added that in, but anyway, it's still killer, and the guitars are just ripping throughout. So that's my pick. So next is a lead guitarist from one of, if not the biggest metal band of all time, and I'm talking about
Motorhead.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Kirk Hammett.
Oh, that one.
Yes, so Metallica, I think you and I were both. I know that when I heard Metallica for the first time, that was it. I was like, okay, that's where yes.
Headbangers Ball,
more of this, please.
1989, in a dorm. We had stolen cable from the resident assistant, the RA, that lived across the hall, and ran it down the hall in the ductwork, and then ran it across the hall and then back down the hall to get to our dorm room, and had illegal cable for about 4 or 5 months till we got busted. But yeah, that's where I remember staying up and watching that.
Yeah.
And when I saw that video, it was the video, because I'd never heard the song.
Was it one?
Yeah, one.
Okay.
I saw that, and it was instantly like, what the hell is that?
And where have you been all my
It was all
life?
this silliness and craziness, and then just one was so dark, and the video was just grabs you.
Yeah. So for me, Metallica, the second cassette tape I ever owned was called Master of Puppets. And our friend Brandon had it on a Boy Scout trip. And I listened to a little bit of it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I got to get this. And within like 2 weeks, I had my own copy of it. And the funny thing is, with Kirk Hammett, I wouldn't say that he's even in my top 10 of all-time favorite lead players. But I will say that the impact that Metallica had on me to just shaping my music fandom is unquestionable, and his leads are so hummable and singable that he actually does have a lot of impact on me. I would never think of him. There's all these other guitarists that I think of first.
I'm the same way. If you told me to make a list of the top 5 guitarists, I'd leave them out, and then later on go, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Sorry.
But Kirk is amazing. He
James, nothing to sneeze at.
No, James. So I kind of gravitate towards James because he's the guy with the crunch.
Yeah.
He is that Metallica sound.
Yeah.
But without those singable leads that Kirk Hammett plays, even though they're fast, you can still sing them.
It's a system.
there's something amazing about that.
Yeah, they work well together.
Now, we're not going to play Metallica.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't- you
see,
know.
that's what I was talking about.
I don't think we can do it.
It's all the good stuff, but you would not hear this
Yeah,
episode.
it just wouldn't work. Yeah, we would play it.
We'd play it, but you wouldn't hear it.
You wouldn't hear it. It'd never come out. But what we are going to play is his very first solo release that came out last year. Did you ever hear about this?
No, was he 12 years old?
No, it came out last year.
No, I mean, wait, I'm thinking his first solo release.
No.
I was thinking pre-Metallica. No, he's never had
He
one.
had never had a solo album. He had done work with other bands and he's produced and done some one-offs, but
Yeah.
he put out an EP last year. I heard nothing about it.
No,
and in
he
fact, I
didn't promote it.
stumbled onto it. And I think the reason is, you'll hear when we play it, the reason is it's him being Kirk, which is he is really huge into horror movies and in cinema, and he kind of combines that with his, so he's got this creepy atmosphere in these songs, and he combines that with his orchestration and the accompaniment of his riffs. So it's very cinematic what we're about to hear. But yeah, he put out an EP called the Portals EP last year. I heard nothing about it, which is crazy because he is one of the biggest guitarists ever. If you think about just where Metallica is in the whole pantheon of the top of the top
that
rock
they've
artists.
been on top since 19. I mean, what would you say that?
Since probably when you heard them.
Yeah,
since
when they went
89.
big.
Or
89.
91 I'd probably say that was like
Yeah, they
where
were-
everybody knew
Yeah.
who they were.
Yeah, 90 was the one, Black Album.
The Black Album.
That's it. Let's say that, because when
cemented
that came
them
out,
in that status.
that's when I was like, absolutely. When I saw one, I was like, I want to get into this band. But when I
Yeah,
saw the
Justice was
concert-
still a metal. Like you had to be in the metal to
niche.
really like
Yeah, but once
Justice.
the Black
but-
Album hit,
you're right.
all hell broke loose because they were on top 40 radio, everything else. So yeah, the fact that they're still pretty much on top.
They sit up there with AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and the U2s as far as like the rock bands that
Yeah.
are at the very top.
That pull massive stadium
crowds.
consistently.
Stones.
It's not like they went away for 20 years. They
Nope.
tour.
They just keep going.
AC/DC didn't tour for how long? And then all of a sudden they're back on top. And same thing, Guns N' Roses didn't tour for a long time.
Yeah,
But no.
Guns N' Roses is really the one that they went away for a long time.
Yeah, and so they're going to have that draw when they come back. But Metallica has been touring
Nonstop.
nonstop.
Yeah. So
I
we're
know,
going to
'cause
play.
We've seen them 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think I've seen Metallica at least 5 times.
4. I think
Yeah.
4 for me.
Yeah, maybe 4. We're going to play a song off of this EP. Now, most of these songs are long because it is sort of that cinematic, atmospheric thing. Lots of passages, kind of proggy a little bit. So I'm going to play the most rockin' one and the shortest one.
Good.
That's on the album.
You know my attention span.
This is called The Gin.
So that was the shortest one.
Shortest one.
What it reminded me of is in the middle of Master of Puppets, you got that nice melodic breakdown.
Yep.
And there's several other songs that have that. This is basically all the ideas that he hasn't gotten to use yet.
That's what I was thinking
Just
too.
put
Like,
them all together into one song.
if I didn't know that was Kirk Hammett, I would go, "Hey, is that Kirk Hammett?" Because it definitely has that middle section of Metallica
Yeah.
masterpieces.
The time
sound.
Well, everybody else has to go off to the side of the stage and take a drink or something. But it was really good. And the sound of the strings, the really clean violin or viola.
I think that was a cello.
Voila, whatever it was.
The voila.
Cello, yeah, the voila. Something like that.
The viola.
Viola.
Which is what my daughter is playing now.
Oh, bless
She's
your
playing viola. She got convinced. She wanted to play violin, which
Yeah.
everybody does. Like, oh, we really need a viola player.
And is it just one
Okay.
more than a violin?
It's
Size-wise?
It's a different clef completely.
Is it big? I mean,
It's a bigger
physically
instrument.
bigger.
It's
do you,
physically
do you
bigger.
play it like a violin
Play
or
it
like
just
a cello?
like a violin, but you don't get the cool parts like the violin.
Oh, you're kinda bad.
All the violins play like the lead parts.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
She's
oh
in the
well,
rhythm section,
I'm like,
basically.
I'm a rhythm guy myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay.
It's all good. Well, you know what? I never wanted to be first chair. I was always second chair because first chair I had to play those solos.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
like symphonic band, and if you messed up, everybody knew if you screwed up.
Yeah, too much anxiety.
It was
being
a lot of
first chair.
pressure. No,
Yeah,
fuck
too much
that.
pressure. Just do second chair. You can just fuck around.
I did all the time and got in trouble for it constantly. But yeah, so that was very symphonic, lots of movements. It was disjointed at times, but it's cool.
Very, like I said, cinematic. You could almost hear that or see that.
Yeah.
You know, in a
I never
horror
thought we'd
movie
get
or
to
something.
play, kind of, sort of Metallica on this podcast, seeing what we're
Right.
dedicated. But you are the master of digging and research. It was awesome.
Well, I said I can't believe I didn't hear about this, but upon listening to it again, I'm like, oh, well, this is why we didn't hear
Yeah.
about it, because most people would not be able to get
No,
into
this-
this. You
this
really have to
is
sit down and listen.
Not getting played on the radio anytime soon.
No, this is not play some Metallica. This isn't
Not that one. No, different Metallica.
I said Metallica.
Metallica.
This
Not
this
symphony
ain't
number
Metallica.
13.
Okay, for our next one, you're not going to believe that I'm playing this, but
Jason Newstead.
I'm not sure. Yeah, well, we could have played some Newstead actually.
He could play Robert Trujillo. Trujillo. I always screw that up. Trujillo. I saw a video of him playing flamenco guitar.
Oh, I saw the Geddy Lee thing. Did you see that?
I didn't know what it was. I just saw him playing guitar, and I was damn impressed.
It's a Geddy Lee show on Paramount Plus where he interviews bass players, and he's interviewing Robert Trujillo. And Robert
I was just
Trujillo's
paying attention to him.
He's doing the
the
Spanish guitar.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway,
the flamenco. Anyway,
the flamenco.
What the hell did you just say?
I'm not.
It's a whole different country.
No, I'm not sure if you knew, but there's this band that I'm kind of fond of. They're from New York.
Speaking of,
And-
not the one we just talked about.
No, they used to put stuff on their faces. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm really into
Like
them.
skincare products,
Skincare
moisturizer.
Yes, they put on they want to block the sun.
A lot of
'cause they-
sunscreen.
They
Yes,
put
heavy.
it on so
it's
thick.
like 150/12.
You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? Kiss.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I was
Yes,
thinking of
that
somebody
one.
else.
No, Vinnie Vincent.
Oh, yeah.
No, Kiss, there's your Kiss connection with a K. And this is your Kiss connection. Now, what may surprise you, and it may surprise some people out there, but Ace Frehley was not my original favorite Kiss guitarist because I got into Kiss in 1986.
Oh, by then he
He was no longer there.
thoroughly drunk.
Yes, he was doing his own
Thoroughly
thing.
sloshed.
I was not a fan of Frehley's comment when that came up. That wasn't my thing. I was into the Asylum era of Kiss when they were wearing so much neon color and
An Aquanet.
and
No longer
just
face paint.
looked absolutely horrendous. I thought it was the coolest thing ever when I rediscovered Kiss. I knew who Kiss were. I knew the logo. I knew that they used to wear makeup. But when I heard Asylum and saw that look, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I was a troubled child.
I saw it, and I had known who Kiss was. I wasn't a big fan, knew who they were, had seen them, and then I saw the Kiss without makeup. This is gonna be cool. And 30 seconds later, I'm like, oh god, these guys are ugly.
Put it back on.
Put it back on, man.
Yeah, so Asylum was my first Kiss album. That was my Kiss. That's where I really got into them. And Bruce Kulick, I didn't know that was his first album, but I knew he was the guitarist in Kiss. And so he was my guy, because at that point in time, in all the magazines, so I was going to, the grocery store with Mom and picking up the Hit Parader and the Rip magazines, and everything at that point in time in the magazines and the articles, it was Kiss were trying to be present in the present and not talk about, not show visuals of who they once were, because they were trying to escape that whole thing.
Yeah.
And so, I was just getting spoon-fed 80s Kiss, and that was my thing. And so Bruce was my guy. I always had a soft spot for Bruce. I think he's excellent technical player, but a lot of people think he's a little vanilla. They think he's, he can play the leads, he can play very fast, he can play almost anything you tell him to play.
But it keeps it safe.
But, and I don't know that he keeps it safe, but a lot of people just don't think, like, if you hear a Bruce Kulick lead, can you say, oh, that's Bruce Kulick? Maybe not.
Right.
Because he can kind of play anything. But that's who he was. He and his brother Bob, who we've talked about
But he
before.
showed up sober.
He did. He showed up.
He showed up, number one.
He showed up, and he played
so-
the right notes.
Yes, that's what his contract said. Do this.
And he was really good. But he and Bob, they grew up being kind of side guys and playing with, they started playing with Meatloaf in the 70s. Wow. So they were they were Meatloaf's touring band, Bob and Bruce. And then Bruce went on to play for Billy Squier. He played in a band called Blackjack, whose singer was Michael Bolton.
That's so hard to fathom.
And then he played on all of those Michael Bolton albums until like 88 or so. And then he goes and he joins Kiss in 84. I don't know if you know this, but he joined originally just to be the backup in case Mark St. John couldn't handle it. So Mark St. John he had one album, Animalize, and then he started having this problem with his hand. And so they brought Bruce in to be like, hey, if his hand freezes up, you've got to come out and play.
He was the Tommy Thayer to
exactly.
Ace Frehley.
He was
before that
the precursor
happened.
Tommy Thayer.
Yeah.
Different reason.
Respectable reasons. Like, you can't do anything about that.
Mark St. John didn't last but a few shows. And then Bruce became the guitarist. They were like, you're done.
Yeah.
You can't play, you're done. And Bruce was the guy. And then from, 86 all the way until right up to the reunion, Bruce was the guy. He was my guy. He was my guitarist in Kiss. And after Kiss, he forms a band called Union with John Corabi, who was ex-Motley Crue at that point. And they put out a couple albums. And then in 2000, Bruce Kulick joined Grand Funk Railroad. And he has been the touring lead guitarist for Grand Funk Railroad until about a week ago. He quit a week ago. So 23 years.
Had a good career.
He was with Grand Funk. And there are rumblings now that he's going to be the touring guitarist with one Gene Simmons in 2024. Gene apparently is going to go out and do some solo gigging again, and he's going to take Bruce with him. That's a rumor. I don't know if it's really happening or not, but that's for me, that's cool. I would go see that because maybe they'll play some of the older stuff.
I mean, if they
Bruce's
played
era.
it like the Eastern where we went last time.
Yeah, exactly.
I would do that. If he's going to book some bigger venues.
I don't think he could.
Yeah, I don't think
he
there's
would.
enough pull for that.
But the other thing that Bruce has done is he's had 3 solo albums. In the 2000s, he released 3 solo albums. And here happens to be a song from his 3rd album. See, there's always an angle. There's a way I get these in here. Here's a song from his 3rd album featuring, some guy singing on it named Gene Simmons. So here's Bruce Kulick, Ain't Gonna Die.
And a preview of Gene Simmons' solo tour.
Here's
possibly.
a preview. All right. Here's some Bruce.
People say I'm always using my fame, so you point and smile.
All right, I hate to admit it, but that's pretty cool.
Pretty badass.
I like hearing Gene out of context. I've heard him so much within the realm of Kiss, and cheese is just part of life within the Kiss world.
It is.
It's built on Velveeta.
It is.
Velveeta, Velveeta, you brighten everything you touch.
It's that golden blend of natural cheeses and other wholesome ingredients that make Velveeta processed cheese bread shine.
Velveeta.
But hearing that, where it's so, like, that was kind of badass.
It's very reminiscent of what, because when they did Carnival of Souls in the 90s, which was sort of their, I'm going to put air quotes up,
Yeah,
Alice in Chainsy kind of
big
vibe.
air quotes, yeah.
Yeah.
But still,
This Bruce put that together,
grungy-er.
and this was kind of in that same realm.
See, I could see that now.
But this came out in 2010, so I don't know if this was a holdover from that time period or if he just liked that kind of sound. I mean, Bruce really came into his own on that, and that's where you started hearing all this, and he just did it there, all of this amazing wah pedal work that he had never done, really. He didn't do a lot of it in Kiss.
I was going to say, Kiss doesn't use a wah
But
pedal.
on Carnival
ever.
of Souls, he really did. And I think even in Revenge, he did it some. But
Okay.
he really started messing around with a heavier tone, those last couple of albums he was on. And that's when I think all those years later, the guy's been playing since the 70s, but I think he really came into his own in the 90s.
Yeah, and playing with Meatloaf, completely different world, different type of music, different type of shows, and then watching that career evolve all the way through.
Well,
all those
he's a
bands.
sideman, right? He is a side guy. He is brought in to play for the artist.
You got to respect this. So, yeah, some people say that it's kind of within a narrow range, his guitar playing, as far as the creativity. There's no distinct.
I think you just heard it, though.
But there's something else to be said about people that show up.
Right.
And that can be reliable like that through 50 years, approximately 50 years of guitar playing.
Yeah. I mean, and then he went right back to it. He did 23 years with Grand Funk Railroad playing Mark Farner's guitar parts because Mark Farner wasn't in the band. Bruce was.
Yeah.
But, you know, now he just turned 70, so happy birthday, Bruce. And I guess he's at the point now where he's like, you know what, I'm just going to do my thing and be Bruce Kulick. And I think you just heard, like, Bruce Kulick's guitar. And like I said, I have a soft spot for him. I think his lead playing is amazing. His technical ability alone, the guy can play anything.
I mean, the vocals and the guitar playing, I could picture a 25-year-old doing that. The energy and the sound from that. It didn't, well, of course, that was 2010, but still. In his 60s.
He was
at
not
that
a spring
point.
chicken.
Right. Do you think Gene can hit those notes now?
I think so. Yeah, I think Gene hasn't lost a thing. It's crazy because he does so much gravelly, throaty singing.
But
I
like
guess
Bruce
because
Springsteen, same thing. Now, Bruce can't hit the notes like he used
Bruce
to,
can't hit it.
But
I mean, Paul
he did
Stanley's
for 45 years.
Paul Stanley's voice is completely gone.
Is it gone?
He can't sing a thing.
Yeah.
But most of that I attribute to the stage banter that he did for that long, for 50 years doing that stage banter. People,
Yeah.
let me tell you. Like all of that just shredded his voice almost more, I think, than the singing.
Wow, come to think of it, yeah, there's a lot of that.
You can go on
song.
YouTube and get like nothing but Paul Stanley
just the
stage
quips.
rants. It's like 2 hours of stage rants, and you just hear him.
Let me
Like,
tell you something else, people. And you know what? Let me tell you something else, people. People, let me tell you 5 other things.
how many times do you think he said
People.
the word people?
Well, okay, let's do the
And
math.
let me tell you something.
15 times, maybe 18 times a show, times 50 shows a year, times
More than that, maybe, for
Yeah.
50 years.
50 years. A lot. It's a metric, a lot.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Paul. We were talking about Bruce.
People over there, let me hear you. People over there, let me hear you. Wild animals in the middle, up top, make some noise.
And now we're going to talk about one of your picks. And I'll be honest with you, I'm only familiar with 2 of his albums, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy, and a collaboration he did with Les Claypool called Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains. This is a dude
Say
that
that
wears,
5 times
yeah,
fast.
it's hard. This is a dude that wears a Michael Myers mask and a bucket of chicken on his head.
KFC bucket.
We're talking about Buckethead.
Yeah.
So
Not Slash. That's Top Hat. That's not a bucket.
that's right. That's not a bucket.
Which I have to admit, I was confused for when I first heard of Buckethead.
Because he has curly hair.
Right. I thought it was, they were just joking around about Slash. I'm like, oh, they're talking about Slash, this guitar player, this Buckethead. I'm like, I guess that's what they're calling him. It took a while to realize it was 2 separate people.
I own 2 of his albums. Apparently, according to you, from
Yeah.
what you sent me last night, I have 596 other albums to explore.
What the hell did you just say?
Keep going. You'll get there. Yeah, so
What?
let's say that again. 598
is
albums
what we counted.
so far. This dude's not old.
Oh, he's not stopping.
No, this is just so far.
Well, so I don't know what the average is. So he's been doing this since '92. We'd have to do the math to get the average. But I know that I think we were looking at 1 year. He put out 50 albums.
50 albums in a year. That's almost an album a week. That's writing it, recording it, mixing it, mastering it. Now, were these actual albums that were sent to stores, or were these released online? Still, you wrote it, recorded it, mixed it, mastered it, and released it wherever.
It got your Crayola markers out and made a quick little album cover.
Yeah, it made an album cover, which some people take 2 years to do the album art. Not you, but some people. And yeah, so just think about this guy.
So but you won't even get close to that if you try to go on an iTunes or an Amazon, or I don't know about Spotify.
Spotify had,
but did they have 596?
No, they had 29 albums for 2015, and total about 50 albums on Spotify.
Yeah, I just looked on Apple Music, and they had at least 50, 60, but there's a whole lot they're leaving out, apparently.
And until this episode, I didn't know it was that much. I knew he was prolific, but once I started looking into him this week and listening to us, just mind-boggling the amount of stuff this guy's put.
So I only know of him because of the Bucket and the KFC, thing. I know of him because of Guns N' Roses and the Les Claypool thing. How do you come into?
Well, first of all, I did not know he was on the Chinese Democracy until just now.
Yes, he was in Guns N' Roses.
Going back and listen to that now. I didn't know that.
Well, it's not a great album.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting listen.
Well, I found out about him. I was listening to a playlist I'd listened to David Gilmour solo, and Spotify, throws in random songs after that, and his name kept coming up, and I kept hearing these melodic instrumentals. And all of his songs, except for a very small few, he has guest vocalists on a few, but most of them are instrumental, vast majority.
Right.
So I
saw where he had a lot of collaborations with other artists, and I think those are the ones where he actually has like spoken word or poetry.
Or there's some more that are almost
and,
like EDM type stuff.
Yeah.
And they have some vocals in the background, but still.
I saw he had an acoustic album. I'm going to go check that out.
I didn't get to that. I actually tried to look it up and I got sidetracked. Imagine that. But yeah, so listen to David Gilmour, kept hearing these instrumentals that sounded Gilmour-ish, and I finally picked up the phone. I was like, who is this?
Now, I would have never compared him to Dave Gilmour, but I haven't listened to enough of him.
Well, once again, he's got a broad range of music. He's got the very noodly diddly, metally, shreddy sides where that's
what I think of him as the chugga chugga.
Yeah, but then a huge amount of albums are really atmospheric, very light, very melodic.
Whatever he's feeling that day.
It's whatever he's feeling that day. I mean, seriously. In the morning he makes an album, in the afternoon he makes another album.
Can we say that again? Yeah. 598 albums since 1992.
So far. Keep that in mind. So far, this dude is not 80 years old, so he's going to be up in the 800 range probably before he just goes, fuck this.
Do you think he's got to be the artist that's released the most? He's got to have like a Guinness record if they gave one for this.
Seriously, who
else would? No,
I've never heard anybody even close.
No,
like 100 albums put you in a very small category of people.
Yeah,
who else has 100 albums? Okay.
What I want to meet is 50. The fan, the ultimate Buckethead fan who not only has all the albums, but has all of the different variations of the releases that came out.
So I had an epiphany. I was having lunch. Our friend Chelsea came in and joined me. She works in the tiny firehouse next door to the big firehouse. And so she comes inside to use the microwave, and we have lunch together occasionally. And I was playing this, and she knew about him. And she's like, oh, yeah, this is music for introverts. And it was like, yes. When you listen to it, think about...
Which has to be what he is.
Yeah. He just sits and makes this music.
Sits in the bedroom.
But it's like for a PhD student sitting alone in their dorm room studying for the big final, this is what you would listen to.
Or some guy making really weird fire sculptures.
Or that too.
Or fixing old fire trucks.
I started playing it, and before I knew it, I was like 3 or 4 albums in, and it went by effortlessly. It's not that it wasn't worth listening to, but it just flows, and his songs just get into a rhythm and
subconscious kind of music.
It lets you think on top of listening. Where Kiss, you're paying attention to the music, you're having a party, whatever. There's a lot going on.
There's usually like 20 women over when you listen to Kiss.
At least 20. And then
I think every Kiss fan that's male, that's what he envisions when he puts Kiss on.
And then with Pink Floyd, for me, I don't really listen to Pink Floyd much anymore. Come saving it. It's good stuff. I don't want to overdo it. But back in the day when I listened to Pink Floyd, I would sit and listen to to Pink Floyd.
Right.
I wasn't doing things at the same time. So it's different types of music for different people.
You may not have been always smoking weed, but you felt like you were.
I felt like it. Or my neighbor, my roommate was. One of the two. Somebody was.
All right.
No, that's what it sounded like.
Okay, so let's get into the song that you picked. It seems like a good starting point because you gave me a song called Welcome to the Buckethead Land from his album Giant Robot. This came out in 1994. At this point in time, he'd probably only released 10 albums.
Right. And this is the more upbeat of his music. So keep in mind, his music doesn't always sound like this. There's a broad range. You've got to go and just skip and, hit every third one and, go through like 10 albums to get a full range of him.
All right, let's hear the man with the KFC bucket.
Amazing fact about famous guitarists. Not only Brian Patrick Carroll, aka Buckethead's only photo of his real face was that photo from his yearbook in high school, many of the fans didn't know he released an unbelievable amount of albums. Since 1991 until 2023, he managed to publish 598 albums in total, which is unimaginable since he is a solo artist. Furthermore, he is still composing music until now. Based on that fact, we can all conclude that he spent most of his years being Buckethead, then Brian.
Do you remember there was a Chevy Chase movie called Funny Farm, and he like bought this old house.
Son of a bitch.
There he is.
We made it the whole episode almost, and he finally.
Anyway, Chevy Chase. So he buys this old house. This movie from the 80s, and it's in the country, but they're from like New York, and they buy this house, and so everybody in the country, hates them because they're city folk.
Typical shtick.
And there's the mailman is this guy in this old pickup truck, and he like flies down the road and he just throws their mail out the window. And every time he passes, he sounds just like that guy.
Honey, are you all right?
Who is that maniac?
This is mail, Andy. That maniac is our mailman.
So, I don't know why I thought of that.
Well, because of that. Now I got to go look that movie up. It's one of the classics.
It sounded just like David.
I forgot about the ending. But no, once again, the caveat was not this song, but 500 other songs do sound more Gilmore-ish. Just real melodic. Just
Guy can
really
play.
Good. Yeah.
Man, he's good.
And he's got, more avant-garde songs. He's got more.
It's a good word for it.
It's artsy in a way.
Zappa-ish.
Thank you. I was going to say that when you ask, hey, what genre of music is this? It's Frank Zappa.
It's what
whatever
Frank
he
Zappa
wanted.
started. He's now finished.
Yeah, that's he is his own genre,
right?
And so that's who he is. He's just whatever the hell he wants to be that morning or afternoon.
Now, is it true that he has maintained his mystique? Like people have really never seen him without the mask.
There's only one photo of him from I think when he was 10 years old.
But that's before he put the mask on.
And I saw his name somewhere, and
his name's out there.
Yeah,
right?
I don't remember what it is, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But
Steve or something.
Brian Patrick Carroll, a.k.a. Buckethead.
Mr. Buckethead to us.
Bucket.
He did a better job than Kiss. They always had paparazzi catching them without makeup, but no, that's it. He keeps it pretty tight.
Well, if you wear a KFC bucket on your head, maybe people are like, you know what? I don't care what you look like.
No, and I had some KFC for the first time in 2 years.
And
2 days ago,
and
I got the chicken pot pie. I got a wrap that's fried chicken and macaroni and cheese, 2 sides, and some of their potato wedges.
Wow! Did it give you the chicken shits?
I fucking no. I withstood it.
Wow!
But yeah, that was
fortitude.
That was lunch right there.
Speaking of,
I lost 3 pounds from the damn stomach virus last month, and
you had to put it back on.
I'm still trying to make up for it. But yeah, I think it's halftime.
It is halftime officially.
Let me go get
blow the whistle.
All right, it's hot. Be careful.
Okay, so we have a mug of wild-caught rice.
Yes, humanely caught wild rice.
Had to trap it.
Right, it was humanely slaughtered.
Right. Oh, it's hot. I'm going to try the broth first. Just the soup without the stuff.
It's thick with 3 C's.
Oh, that's good.
It's damn hot, but it's good.
If you just get the soup, rice is good.
Oh, yeah, that'll cure what ails you.
My rice is a little bloody. I don't think you got all the blood out.
I didn't, yeah. Well, that's what you get. It's all natural.
And what kind of mushrooms are these?
Portobello.
Portobello.
Or portobello. Portobello. There you go, portobello. Say it like a true Florida. Portobello.
These are Florida mushrooms.
Portobello.
They make you feel funny. They grow out of poop.
I can't think of doing mushrooms without itching because the one time I've done it, we were in the woods and I got chiggers from sitting in the pine straw.
Because you couldn't get up?
Yeah, I just sat there and got chiggers for 2 hours. Didn't realize it. And then the next day, the drive home was just brutal.
Shrooming and chiggers.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Southern rock album.
One and done. Maybe it's time. That was 10 years ago.
Okay, it's really good. There's no meat in here?
Oh, dude, tons of meat.
Oh.
No, there's...
I thought you just said rice and mushrooms on
Well,
it.
I didn't... Okay, there's
you
onions.
left out the meat part.
Yeah, there's chicken, and grilled chicken, and healthy turkey sausage.
Okay, awesome. Figured it. Wow, this is really, really tasty.
Thank you.
It's almost like a gravy.
Yeah, I cooked it a little. I might add a little more broth to it later, but I like thick soup because soup that's just the broth is delicious, and an hour later I'm starving to death. So I tend to make mine more like a stew, a stoop.
That's very good. I almost want to play the song again.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, well, we got to get moving.
Yeah, we got business.
We're listening to guitars.
People do not come here to listen to smack our gum.
They might. What did you say it was called again?
Stoop.
Asmarm.
Oh, Asmere.
Asmere.
Ass smear videos. They're all over the internet. If you look
That's
up,
what happened when you ate that KFC. You had a little ass smear.
So Google ass smear and see what you get. Do not send us links to ass smear videos.
Go to asssmear.com.
I'm not going to register that if that's not a thing.
Maybe it's a .org.
.org. That would be a .org. Yeah.
.edu.
If you have ass smear, the following symptoms, please contact.
All right. Okay. My pick again. And this is probably going to be the oddest selection of the night because this is a song from the very first cassette, the very first album that I ever really listened to ever.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that pre-skateboard days, I was a little middle school guy, and I went to this, it was called Backpacking Adventures Camp.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So there's actually a documentary out now. I forget what it's called, but in the 80s, it was very common to, if you think your kid's not tough enough, to send your kid to an adventure camp.
Get your ass beat camp.
Which really meant that we are going to throw you in the woods with some guy who really shouldn't be alone with middle school kids or teaching them anything. But that's what we're going to do. And then see if you make it.
Well,
see if you come out the other end a week later.
Yeah. My first swim lesson, the swim coach or the teacher was a retired Marine drill sergeant. Yeah, that didn't go well. I was 5 years old. Didn't happen. So yeah, these guys out there that can't really have normal jobs, they get put into adventure camps.
Yeah. So I went on a backpacking adventure camp. Now, to my surprise and really my delight at that point in time was it wasn't just boys.
I was going to say, was it
boys
co-ed?
and girls.
Nice.
And it rained the whole week.
And how old were you?
I was like 11.
Oh, yeah.
12?
Things were percolating.
Oh, yes.
Bubbling
yes,
up. Hormones
very
were starting to,
Yes.
What is this
And
feeling?
if you remember at that age, 12 years old, the girls start growing faster.
Yes.
Or forming.
What are those?
Before. Yes. They were.
Did you get stung by something? Why are you swelling up?
It was educational. Let me just tell you.
Giggity.
And we were in this van with these two youth leaders who really hadn't, I think they were like hooking up. It was a guy and a girl who took us out. And I think they had their own tent.
100%, yes.
I think they were hooking up at night and just leaving us in the van because it was raining the entire week that we were out, supposedly in the mountains and hiking every day. We do day hikes, and the rain was so bad, they were like, you guys just sleep in the van.
So it wasn't a camp in the sense that there were cabins and cafeterias.
No, we started at one of those.
Yeah.
And then they were like, get in the van, you pansies. We're taking you out to the mountains.
Oh, my God.
And you're going to learn, and you're going to backpack. And we had we didn't know how to do our packs, and these people didn't know how to do their packs either. We're like 12-year-olds with 60-pound packs. We had way too much shit.
That's like Appalachian Trail.
Well, that's where we were. That's where we were.
But when you're hiking the entire trail.
But we were doing day trips. There was no reason to even wear your pack because we would come back to the
maybe a bottle of water or something.
Yeah,
well, they didn't have bottled water back
then.
But
they were trying to break us, and that's so. Anyway, all this.
You sat in a van with how many kids in the rain?
So it's like me and Connor, my best friend Connor.
I know Connor.
And so we're both like 11, 12. I don't remember exactly the age. It was probably 12. And, there's like 7th, 8th. So 6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Oh, my God.
And there were 8th grade girls in the van with us.
Yeah.
Who were educating us on all sorts of things that we didn't know about. And it was an amazing experience, I must say. Thank God for the rain that week.
That was the trip to Six Flags, 7th grade, with the 8th grader who blossomed very soon and very quickly, and 5 other prepubescent dudes in the van going up to Six Flags from Florida. That kind of trip where you're stuck in the van for 7 hours together.
Now I am going to pause here because I have daughters that are approaching this age, and I want to say it was a different time.
It was a different time.
It was a different time,
and we were young. Now we're old.
Exactly. And it was a different time.
Yeah,
things happened differently back then.
Exactly.
So not today, people.
No,
today.
Not
on my watch.
No. Do not. Asterisk, no. Zip it.
All right. So I say all this to let you know that because we were in the van so much and traveling, we were listening to a lot of radio, and we're of the age of where we want to listen to whatever's on top 40 radio at the time. And the song Shout by Tears for Fears is playing
good song.
Every, call it 15 minutes, it seems like. And we are like all like pumping our fist on the roof of the van every time it came on, and everybody was so into that. So that Christmas, after my excursion,
after you became a man,
after I became a man, not really, but educated at least.
Educated, yeah.
I asked for a tape. I wanted a boombox and a tape. Boomboxes were a new thing. It was like a new thing
because they're expensive.
Used
they
to have
like
the mono tape recorders.
I had
that's
that.
What everybody had.
Yep.
Now we're getting boomboxes, and it's a cool thing. And so I asked for a boombox and a tape. And the tape that I got, my sister bought me Tears for Fears.
Songs from the Big Chair.
Songs from the Big Chair. Now, this is not an obscure album. And in fact, it was #1 in the US, #2 in the UK, 5 times platinum, this album. It's done rather well. It had a whole bunch of hits other than Shout, Head Over Heels, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Mother's Talk. One of my Desert Island albums. It's one of my favorite albums of all time because it was my first. And I had that cassette for
you always remember your first.
I had that album or that tape for a full year before I got anything else. I wasn't that into music.
Yeah.
Like I listened to radio and I had this tape, but on the boombox, I like made tapes of songs off the radio.
Yeah.
Because I was cheap.
Like, come on, play it, play it.
I got like a whole Police concert because they used to play full concerts sometimes on Sunday nights. And, that was cool to me. But I wasn't that into music yet. It was just right before I got into skateboarding and music and all that stuff. But I had this tape and the song Head Over Heels, which is a big hit, there are 2 parts. There's a song right before it comes on called Broken. And then when Head Over Heels ends on the cassette tape on the album, there's an outro that is a live version of Broken. Mm-hmm. Now on that, there's some badass guitar playing. And I was only listening to radio singles at that time, And so a lot of times when I listened to this tape, I would listen to Shout, Rewind, Rewind. But when I would take showers, I would play the whole thing, I'm in the shower. And when this song came on, I remember this one time very vividly. The song came on Broken, and I paid attention to what the guitar was doing. I didn't know anything about instruments. I was completely naive to the whole process of what music was. But something about that guitar lead, I was like, what is that sound? And how can I get more of it? Mm-hmm. Unlike anything else on the whole album, because it's not Roland Orzabal, who's like the main guy, him and Kurt Smith, who were the 2 guys in Tears for Fears, but they have this guitarist named Neil Taylor, and he plays this ripping lead on this song called Broken before Head Over Heels. And it just, like I said, it turned my head, and it kind of made me go, I want to find out more about what that sound is and what's making that sound. And I knew it was a guitar, but I didn't know anything else other than that. So I would attribute this to my love of guitar music, which is an odd one, but
right. Considering how heavy you went soon after that.
Yeah, not long after I'm into punk, like complete departure. But remember last year we played Neon, which was the precursor to Tears for Fears, which was their punk band, which Neil Taylor was in. So it kind of all makes sense, even though at the time I had no clue. But I'm going to play, what I did was I edited Broken and
I was hoping that's what you
last
did.
half together to make one song.
Now, refresh my memory. Broken is live.
No, Broken it's like a lead-in to Head Over Heels.
Right.
And then as Head Over Heels is ending, they do like a reprise of Broken, a live version. Because they played all of these songs, the songs that are on Songs from the Big Chair, they played live for a year before they even recorded them.
But on the album, it's a studio.
They have a studio first, and then the reprise is live.
Oh, cool.
And it's in between this major hit.
Okay.
Here we go.
I knew that. DJ Kevin Williams on the remix.
So when he goes into the time
Yeah.
flies, that's where it starts, head over heels. It also ends head over heels that way. So I just spliced those two together.
So once again, I'm confused. I just had
What's wrong with you?
a little
So
bit of
studio broken
right.
up until where he says
Time flies.
time flies,
And that starts
that
shout.
starts head over heels.
I mean, head over heels.
You were not getting my soup.
No, it's too good.
Go away, Kitty.
Hey, no, Kitty. Back, Kitty. That's easy poof. Mom. Kitty's being a no.
I know some kitty that's sleeping with mommy tonight. I saw
Wow,
that.
it's been a long
That's been a
time.
long. That came out of nowhere. Wow. I saw that in 1999. And it just came right back out again all these years later.
Yeah, I was just in 1985 or 86,
Yeah.
and you were in 99. How about that?
But the intro has never been played on the radio. But sometime in the 90s, when 80s music started getting nostalgic again.
You think they let the
Yeah, it
end
would.
part play out?
Like our alternative rock stations would have like an 80s lunch, whatever, and they would let the outro play. But satellite radio, definitely, whenever you hear this, they'll let the outro play.
Oh, okay.
Almost all the
right.
time. Now, once again, top 40.
So now I
largest
will be
radio
in
station.
trouble.
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
getting pulled.
Awesome.
No, but that mix was really cool to hear that because I heard it on the album, and I had never listened to the album up until about a year ago. I
Yeah.
knew a lot of the songs individually, but I had not heard that intro. When I heard it, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
That frames it front and back.
But again, in perspective, I knew nothing of music other than I listened to the radio.
Yeah, but that was
badass guitar
80s
lead.
guitar, not 80s hair guitar, but 80s guitar as in, the edge, that jangly,
Exactly.
layered sound.
But he's ripping, man.
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, it's got some fast runs in it, and it didn't sound like any other new wave band that I knew of.
No. And that's what I've always liked. I gotta
Neil Taylor, he really should have
listen to
joined
it again.
Duran because they
the
needed another Taylor.
Yeah, the Taylor.
The Taylor
group.
Taylors. Yeah. So Neil would go on. He played with Tears for Fears when they toured.
Mm-hmm.
He played on the next album, Seeds of Love, and then he played with Tina Turner,
God, that was another good song.
Howard Jones, Morrissey, Naked
Hojo.
Eyes. He played with all of them.
He had a good time.
He's a
Those-
damn good
those
guitarist.
guys were all-
And he has solo stuff.
Yeah.
So great guitar tone, great player.
Well, next, the part D of this episode, maybe we'll listen to a solo song.
Yeah, check that out. I don't own any, so we'll have to go
We'll
dig that up.
preview it. We'll make sure it's up to snuff.
Now, next, I didn't own this next song, and a listener gave it to us. A friend. I should really just say a friend. This was a gift from our friend Steve Coldwell.
Oh, Steve.
Yep. He sent us this. I had never heard it before, but this is a guitarist that you and I both love, or at least we love his work with a certain band called Iron Maiden.
That guy.
Yeah, so I am talking about Adrian Smith. So I don't know about you, but I owe a lot of gratitude and debt to Adrian Smith for his work with Iron Maiden, just for the fact that, again, Iron Maiden was part of the reason that I love heavy music. They're part of the reason that I know more about guitar minis because they played a lot of them as well. I may have started with Metallica, Suicidal Tendencies, Metal Church, but as soon as I heard Iron Maiden when I was in 9th grade, it was all Maiden all the time. Like, I was in to Maiden. And those first albums that Smith is on until he left in 1990, those are the classic Maiden albums, the classic Maiden songs. When he left, I felt like they kind of lost something. And they didn't really get it back, even when he came back. I think the 80s Maiden will never be topped. Like, no other Maiden will come close to it.
No, you can't just recreate a vibe.
Lightning in a bottle.
When you gel. Yeah, there's millions of examples of that. It hit at the right time, the right spot. Later on, you're rich and famous, and you don't have that same drive sometimes to go out there and just shred.
Yeah, I mean, he came back in 99, and they were a 3-guitar band ever since then. But there's something about when it's just Adrian and Dave Murray playing together.
Yeah.
It's just magic to me.
Trooper was my introduction. I'd seen Iron
so
Maiden t-shirts. I heard people talk about them. I couldn't have named any of their music, didn't know about them until my first band, meaning we got together for a party. But we practiced for about 3 weeks and had 8 songs. And my friend was a really good guitar player. I sucked. I just started playing, but I could play a few chords. And he's like, okay, so here's some songs. And this one's called The Trooper.
So easy, so easy.
Yeah, I've been playing for maybe a year and not electric. I was taking classical guitar classes. And he's like, okay, here's your part. And he would play my part. I'm going, I'm sorry, did you think I could play that? And we sat down and I learned a rhythm harmony to the intro. And we did it poorly, but we pulled it off. And the fact that we pulled it off, I wear as a badge of honor that we actually made it through that song. I almost broke something.
Your first performance, you were pulling off guitar harmonies.
Yeah. And, doing the moves with, the guitars and stuff. And it was horrible. I'm thankful we didn't have cell phones back then to record it. It's much better in my head than it actually was.
Well, I think Adrian Smith is a bigger part of Maiden maybe than some people think, because like I said, when he left, they still put out great albums, but nowhere close to the stuff, Peace of Mind, even Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son, where he was playing more of it was like the synthy guitar or whatever that was called, the guitar synth stuff. I mean, it was just unique, and just him and Dave Murray together, it was just amazing to me. They didn't come close to that afterward, but still love Maiden. He went on to form a band called Psycho Motel, and I had never heard this. So they put out 2 albums in the 90s. It's
next door to the Psycho Circus.
It must be right next to Psycho Circus. Actually, if you're going to the Psycho Circus, you're going to want to book a room at the Psycho Motel, because
when it's all over.
You can't really do Psycho Circus in one evening.
No.
You kind of, it's like Disney. You got to make it
But they have a great buffet at the hotel.
Yeah, Psycho Buffet.
Sign me up for that.
Yes. you might be the chef. Anyway, they released a couple albums, and then he joined Bruce Dickinson's band, because Bruce also left Maiden for a while in the 90s, and then he was part of Bruce's band. But I had never heard the Psycho Motel stuff until Steve sent it to us. So we're going to check out some Psycho Motel from their second album that came out in 1997 called Welcome to the World. This is the song, Welcome to the World.
Greed is good and you'll count every dime.
crunchier than Iron Maiden, but it's still really good.
It's like Allison Maiden.
Allison Maiden. I like that. And I can't remember, as we've mentioned several times, when you and I saw Iron Maiden here in Atlanta, I was busy passing a kidney stone.
You were.
During the concert.
Yep.
And so the memory's kind of blurry.
Some of the most amazing screaming I've ever heard come out of you.
For me, yes.
At a metal show, and it was amazing. People were like, "This guy's really into it."
It's like, woo, ow, woo, ow, God. They're so good. Ow, dear Lord, please kill me now. No, I was trying to remember. There was one of the guitar players that had on sneakers that was showing off his dexterity by putting his foot up on the amplifiers doing the split.
Yes, that was
in his
Adrian's.
60s.
Yes, that was Adrian's replacement. That was Yannick Gers.
Yannick Gers. Okay, so he was a replacement. So he wasn't as old probably, but he was probably
he is
in his 50s.
He is. He's might be older than the rest of them.
Oh,
because
okay.
he played. Let me think about this. He played in early '80s. He was in some other bands.
So he might have been 60s then.
Yeah, maybe.
This dude does yoga because he was showing off. Like in the middle of each song, he'd run over to the
He's
side.
a little
with
sloppy because he's throwing his guitar around. But
it was
whipping it with the cord. And
there were two other guitar players. Nobody noticed.
One being Adrian Smith.
It was
the other
fine.
One being Dave Murray.
It was fine. There was plenty of guitars to cover up one guy goofing off and putting on a show. I'm sorry, he was putting on a
great.
show.
He's awesome.
You know, it was thoroughly entertaining, despite the fact that my level of pain was 13 or 14.
Oh man, yeah. So, like I said, Adrian Smith. The difference between him and the other guys in Maiden is he kind of has more of a blues guitar, classic rock background, and you never really thought about it until he did these other things, and it comes out. And even now, he's in a band with Richie Kotzen called Smith Kotzen, and they're doing like really bluesy, grooving rock, and he can sing his ass off too. So that was him doing.
We probably like that because
doing the harmonies.
We like the heavier side of the blues.
We
so
do.
That probably would be nice.
Yeah. So. We might dig into that a little bit more. I think I've played it on maybe one of my solo episodes.
You got a whole nother episode in the can. You're ready to go.
I'm going to end with another band that we've played before, and actually they were on the same episode 17, where we played Anvil Chorus, which we started the night with. We also played this band, Cacophony.
Oh, yeah.
And the way this band came to me was I had seen in the Hit Parader or the Rip magazine or something, I had seen this really cheesy ad for these guitar-based albums. So there was a company called Shrapnel Records, and they put out all the shredders. Like all they did was put out shred albums. So you had Yngwie was originally on that. The Steeler album came out on Shrapnel. Vinnie Moore, Tony McAlpine, Paul Gilbert, Richie Kotzen, who we just mentioned. All of these names that you would read about. Yeah, these were the true shredder guys in California, and Shrapnel Records is the label that put them all out. And so I saw this ad for this band called Cacophony, which at the time I couldn't even pronounce it. I didn't know what it was, and I was like, like I couldn't pronounce it, and finally I got the old dictionary out and like, oh, cacophony. Okay, I see.
That's what that is.
Oh, it's the opposite of symphony, so it's noisy. I get it. That's very clever. Oh, okay, great. And anyway, I'm going to a guitar lesson in 1988, 89, somewhere around there. I would, my mother would drive me, bless her, she would drive me 40 minutes up to Pineville, North Carolina, which is just below Charlotte.
Yeah.
She would drive me up there once a week because I didn't have my license yet. I wasn't old enough.
And there was no guitar
There was no place. There was no guitar teacher where I lived.
Lancaster.
No. So she would drive me up there, and at first I started on bass, and then I got an acoustic guitar, and I started taking guitar lessons. But another guy, just bless him, David Caudle. He's a jazz musician. He has several albums out, but he was the guitar teacher at Howard Music in Pineville, North Carolina.
So she would not only drive you up there, but hang around.
So she
and then drive
she
you
would
back.
go like shopping. So that's kind of of where I'm going with this. She would go shopping. I would do my 30 or 40-minute lesson, whatever it was, with David Cottle, who is, like I said, he's a trained jazz musician, putting out albums, jazz. He's playing jazz every night, incredible guitar player. And I'm like, hey, can you teach me how to play the bass on Except Balls to the Wall?
He's just going, God.
He's like, oh, good Lord.
You little shit.
And then I'm like, this week I want to learn Holy Diver by Dio.
Dun, 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 dun,
Can you teach me? And he did.
At least you were doing like later on 80s. I mean, just the hair metal. Dum 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 dum.
Exactly.
Dum, dum.
But that's where I started. I mean, that's all I knew. You know, after I went through my punk.
He's like,
my
I'm
punk
getting
thing.
paid
I was getting into the
$22
metal.
an hour. I don't care.
Yeah, he's like, whatever. Yeah, we'll start there and then we'll go into some other things. But he introduced me to Yes, and he introduced me to a lot of progressive things from his day in the 70s.
That makes sense. Okay, that's where you got
Zappa.
it from.
I found out he told me about Zappa. I remember I took a Yes cassette to him, the only one I had, which was 90125. I didn't know.
Right. He's like,
what did I know? I took it up like, I got Yes. Remember you told me about Yes? I got
that
it.
one.
He's like, okay, there's a guitarist named Steve Howe.
Yeah.
He's not on this one. You need to go back. Get another one. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
So I'm going to this thing. There's a right across in the same little strip mall. There is a Trax Records, which was like it was a huge record store. And I would go in there because my mom would drop me off. I'd do the lesson, and then she'd be like, I'll be back in an hour. I'm going shopping or whatever. So I would have 30 minutes lesson and then 30 minutes to just go and drool in tracks and like look at tapes and CDs that just come out. And I was looking at CDs and all that to say, I found Cacophony. And I'd never heard this before.
You never heard of Cacophony?
Never heard of Cacophony. And it's, pretty cheesy cover. If you go look up the cover for Go Off, which was their latest album, it was their second album. It's called Go Off, and it's got these two guitarists. One of them's named Marty Friedman, and the other one's named Jason Becker. And they're in cages with their guitars, and they have two pictures of them. This is the cover. It's like the most ridiculous 80s cover ever. And
that's saying something.
And and I'm like, I'm just going to buy it. I'm sure it's good. It's got to be good.
I'd blow $5.
Yeah, it was probably like 12, it was probably all the money I had. And so I bought it, not knowing anything about it. And when I stuck that thing in the player, when I got it home, it's like thrash metal tempos, melodic solos, but then a lot of this really exotic neoclassical scales, shit that I had never heard.
Yeah.
Couldn't even comprehend what it was. And they're doing all of this as guitar harmonies. And I'd never heard of Marty Friedman. This is prior to him joining Megadeth. This is prior to Jason Becker leaving to join David Lee Roth. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know who these guys were, but I heard this music and it was like, I didn't know guitars could sound like that. And I had heard Yngwie Malmsteen. I had the first two Malmsteen albums, but this was different because they were playing together and they were playing like, I didn't even know what it was. Like some of the scales and the shreddy things they were doing, like I can't comprehend what possibly their fingers could be doing on a fretboard.
They've got 26 fingers.
It's what it sounded like to me. But it definitely turned my head and it turned me on to this crazy shrapnel catalog of artists that they have. But to me, nothing compares to the two Cacophony albums because Marty Friedman and Jason Becker are just amazing. We've played Jason Becker a few times on the show.
I don't remember.
What the hell did you just say?
So he is the guy that lost the ability to speak, and there's a documentary. So he can only communicate with his eyes now.
L-A-D, ladies, A and G-E, gentlemen, T-H-I, this is Jason Becker, T-H-E, the S-E-X, sexiest, M.A. man alive.
There was nobody better than that dude. He was on another level.
When people would hear him, they'd turn their head and go, what the heck was that?
But he wouldn't just play a Bach piece. He could set a guitar on his lap and play it that way. Jason was on his way to becoming a really big rock star.
He was going to just take over the world.
And that's when Jason told us his leg was kind of bothering him.
He just had been limping for a while, and we finally talked him into getting it checked out at Kaiser in LA when he was there, and that's when all the trouble started.
We believe you've got Lou Gehrig's disease and you have 3 to 5 years to live. I think his answer was, am I going to be able to tour?
Eventually needed crutches, then a wheelchair. Then it just got to where he'd drop the guitar, he couldn't even hang on to it.
When he was really sick, he was really thin and really pale. It was a different person.
It never surprised me that if there was a way to keep making music, he would. His mind frame was, well, no, I have stuff to do, so I just have to go do it. And so we created a system to allow Jason to be able, using just his chin, sort of one click at a time, to be able to enter in the notes.
God, he just kept working. It happened so young, and he just still had a life to live, and he wanted to live it. That's when I invented the sign language for him. Basically, it's an eye geometry. Every letter of the alphabet has 2 eye movements.
I remember I came to his house, and he played this thing for me, and I went, how did you do this? I was just floored.
It's a much bigger reason than anybody out there knows why he's still here. But he's still here.
Because he got sick
But he continued
to
composing
compose because his father, if you remember, his father came up with a way for him to move his eyes, and basically he came up with a program.
Yeah, it's like typing,
where he can
but
type
it's with music.
He can type music and he can type words and he can communicate. So I've mentioned it before. Every time we've talked about Jason, there's a documentary called Not Dead Yet, came out in 2012. Go watch that. It's amazing because it talks about his whole disability and how he deals with everything. But anyway, I'm going to play from Go Off. I'm going to play the song Go Off, and it's as it sounds. It's just ridiculous what you're about to hear. But my young ears hearing this, I couldn't even comprehend what was going on. And I don't know that I still do. I don't know that I know exactly what they are doing. Here's some cacophony for you.
Damn. I want to see the sheet music for that. Just a black ink all over a page.
Take a deep breath after that.
God. I mean, it was a cacophony, and then it just drifted.
But then it had these nice little passages.
beautiful.
It ended with like a almost Brian May-ish kind of
Yeah,
Queen
the
thing.
intro was spot on to, there's a genre of music, 8-bit.
Yeah.
And it's all 80s and 90s video game background music.
Right.
That sounds like that. And it sounded like it was sped up.
Right.
So that was the intro. And then the middle section was what most people use when you're making fun of the 80s and they want to play something that sounds completely ridiculous. That's what they play.
Excellent!
Right.
To make fun of.
But this
music
came out in
the 80s.
1988.
Yeah, but it was something like that where it's just insane. That's what the 80s sounded like.
I think even though I had Malmsteen, the fact that it was two guitarists playing in unison this crazy shit, like how could you even learn what the other guy's doing?
That's the best thing. I would love to just sit in the room with a beer and watch them go, okay, first measure. Okay, no. You had it wrong. It's.
I mean,
what the hell? How do you teach that to somebody? They just watch you and go, okay, yeah, no.
I mean, nowadays you got all the gent bands. Have we talked about gent? We haven't talked about the genre gent yet, have we?
Like gentlemen?
No. It's DJENT, gent, because that's the sound that guitars make. It's real staccato kind of stuff, and then they play these ripping leads like this.
Okay,
and,
yeah.
It's
I know what you're talking about.
Nowadays you got those bands, and you have, like
it's
the
just
power metal
nothing
bands.
But noodly diddly.
Like Dragon Force, who were playing this kind of stuff now. But when I first... You had never heard anything like this when this came out, at least to me.
Just the progression from early 80s, and we know the early 80s still sounded kind of like the 70s, but there was a change. But still, early 80s, what those...
It was getting beefed up, but...
hair bands and metal bands kind of sounded one way, and then by the mid-80s, people were changing their sound to more of this. Not like this, but more of this, the shreddy part of it.
Yeah, and I was already into Vi. I was already into Satriani. I'd heard both of them, but...
This tops that way past
beyond
either one
that,
of those.
To me.
Satriani will go off on a run or two, but not in harmony and that long
he's
of a
more
run.
of a, you can sing his leads.
Exactly.
He can rip it,
More
but then you
bluesy
can kind of
ripping.
sing his leads as well. So it didn't surprise me that Marty went to Megadeth. It made a whole lot of sense because they were kind of doing thrash.
Yeah.
It was weird that Jason Becker went to David Lee Roth. But I guess, he had Steve Vai.
And once again, David Lee Roth at that time was huge.
And he was known for playing with Virtuoso.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of does make sense. But after, because I only knew this of Jason Becker. He had a solo album at the time too, but I didn't get that till later. But I just wouldn't have put him with David Lee Roth. But that album that they did was pretty good. And unfortunately, then he got ALS.
Yeah.
And by 91, he's done. He's having to learn just how to survive. And his parents are having to take care of him. And then his dad comes up with the way that he can communicate. And now he composes. And he's still composing kind of stuff like this. It's a little more melodic now, but he's still composing.
That's insane.
So that's what I got for you. A lot of, not quite newly diddly, but a little bit.
A little bit. You delved into it.
But more of just the guitars that just kind of turned our heads, I think, and made us go, I need to learn more about this instrument.
We got more coming up. There's enough for another episode out there.
Absolutely.
Did you figure out what the secret ingredient was in the soup?
Crack.
What the hell did you just say?
What's wrong with you?
That too. Well, that was, half a cup. Just a half a cup of crack. No, it's white pepper.
White pepper.
And that's going to be the name of my funk rock band one of these days. White pepper.
Speaking of funk rock, I was looking up Buckethead while we were listening to Buckethead. Did you know he's got an album with Bootsy Collins?
Whoa. That was not on Spotify.
A whole album. I'll have to look it up again, but it's got a different name.
Yeah, you got to find that for me.
But it's Buckethead and Bootsy.
I need to hear that.
I think we'll just do a whole episode on the Buckethead Bootsy collab.
And one of these days you'll be playing White Pepper.
Maybe we'll play some White Pepper next week.
Yeah.
All right. Until then.
See you.
Later.